Well, good morning. Hello, everyone. It's a few minutes before 7:30, but I thought I would jump on and just make sure you all know that I'm here. Let me just pin this to my Facebook page so that we can have everybody join us. Yeah, here we go. All right. Hello. Good morning. How have you all been? Let me just make a new folder here. One thing I'll say about starting this new book, Obadiah, I finally know how to spell Obadiah after being in it for the last few days. Anyway, it's good to see you. Almost New Year. It's just about to be New Year's. This is the last day of December of 2024, December 31st. And, okay, now I'm done fiddling with the settings. Good morning. So we are in the Minor Prophets in the Passion Translation. We took a couple days off so that we could, or I could, get more familiar with Obadiah. We finished Amos. There were 9 chapters in Amos, and we are now going to go into the shortest book of the Old Testament. And it's only 21 verses, and it's called Obadiah, the prophet Obadiah. So how have you all been the last couple of days? I hope you're well. And do you have plans for tonight, for New Year's Eve? Are you staying up till midnight? And what are you doing tomorrow, New Year's Day? Do you have traditions? It's so pretty outside. I just looked out the window before we started, and I love how right in the very crack of dawn, the sky is all pink and layered. It's so pretty, the colors. I was thinking about my kids are going to the snow tomorrow to sled, and it's going to be really pretty up there. Hopefully it won't be icy for them so they can have fun. It's been raining so much here. We had our first day without rain yesterday, but that was Monday, and the day before on Sunday, when I was delivering meals in the evening, I stopped by to see some friends who were staying in a motorhome park here, and it was flooded. When I drove in, there was just water flooding the streets, so it's hard to drive through to see them, but I did find them. All right, so we are on page, let's see, 165, if you're in your book this morning. And I'm just going to read the introduction here and make some comments. I've got one thing in particular I want to share. This is the introduction that's provided at the beginning of each of the books so that we have some sort of backdrop or understanding before we read the actual scriptures. So the author is Obadiah the prophet. The audience is Israel or Edom and other surrounding nations. The date is uncertain, but a plausible date is shortly following the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. The type of literature is prophecy. The major themes are the complex relationship between Israel and Edom, inflated pride, the day of Yahweh, Edom and Adam, and seeing Jesus in the book. The outline is given here. We won't go into that. And then about the book of Obadiah. Okay, Obadiah, it says, is the shortest book in the Old Testament, just 21 verses. it starts out with a condemnation of Israel's neighbor to the east, Edom, also called Idumea, by the Greeks and Romans, which had shifted location by New Testament times to the area around Hebron in southern Judah. The people of Edom trace their ancestry back to Isaac and Rebekah through their son Esau, the brother of Jacob, also known as Israel. Jacob and Esau had a very complex relationship, as we know. The ongoing family feud between the two nations mirrored the stories of the two patriarchs who gave rise to these neighboring tribes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about them in a minute, but this is kind of the theme that stuck out to me, was the relationship between Esau and Jacob, the fraction between them, and what happened to them. So we'll talk about that in a minute. When the superpower Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, the holy city of the descendants of Jacob, in 586 BC, some of the Edomites saw it as an opportunity to loot the city. Such behavior was more than simple destructive violence and theft, since it came from a brother nation. Obadiah saw it as raw betrayal. All right, so that is the purpose, or the not the purpose, but what's happening during the time of the writing. And now we're going to go into the purpose, which is just a paragraph here, and it says, the book of Obadiah announces Yahweh's judgment against Edom. So the book is really about Edom, E-D-O-M, the Edomites, and all humankind for those times when they descend into and operate out of the shadow side of human nature. God cannot tolerate evil, and yet condemnation is never the last word in his covenant promises. Along with Joel and Amos, Obadiah shares a vision of the fulfillment of God's kingdom, a future where he blesses not only the tribe of Judah, but also all the nations surrounding them, and by implication, eventually the entire world. All right, so this is now the author and the audience. So we'll find out a little bit more about Obadiah. Well, actually, we won't, because the opening sentence says that we know absolutely nothing about the prophet Obadiah except for his name. In Hebrew, Obadiah means servant of Yahweh. There are other Obadiahs in the Bible, example 2 Chronicles 17:7, but no direct evidence is forthcoming to connect them to this prophet. And much like the name Theophilus in Luke's writing, in Luke 1 and Acts 1, the name Obadiah could be a description rather than a proper name. Theophilus could have been simply a friend of God. In Greek, Theo means God, and Philos means friend. Or Luke could have been writing to a specific man named Theophilus. In the same way, we must also allow for the possibility that the book of Obadiah was written by an unnamed servant, Obed of Yahweh, rather than someone with the proper name Obadiah. But for the purposes of this discussion, the translation team will assume the proper name is the correct explanation. So they're just going to let it be that this man's name is Obadiah, and it's not just a translation of his name or who he was, or a description of who the man was. We also don't know precisely when he wrote, although we do know that the incident that catalyzed the need for the prophecy was the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC. That's what caused the prophetic word to be uttered. Not only the destruction of Jerusalem, but the subsequent looting of the nation of Judah by the Edomites. Additionally, the content of Obadiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel have distinct similarities regarding the divine judgment that was poured out on Edom, which has led many to suggest that Obadiah may well have been a contemporary of both Jeremiah in the late 600s, the early 500s, and Ezekiel in the early 500s. Of course, this prophecy was written to the people of Judah to help them interpret, from God's point of view, the horrific behavior of the Edomites towards them, and to give the people of God some hope. So, additionally, one cannot rule out the possibility that Obadiah was also sending a direct message to Edom and perhaps to all the surrounding nations. So he's trying to encourage the Israelites that God sees what the Edomites are doing, and he's going to take care of it. That would be an encouraging word, since everything was getting destroyed and looted. In a broader sense, Obadiah is also a warning letter to all of humanity, alerting us to the consequences of striking out in unprovoked aggression toward others, especially when they are at their most vulnerable. Obadiah starts with a telephoto lens focusing on Judah and Edom, but the end of the book uses a wide-angle lens, applying the truths of the prophecy, both judgment and promise, to neighboring nations. The message is timeless. Yahweh will punish evil and bless the faithful remnant, as he has demonstrated so often in history. Let's read that again, that the message is timeless. Yahweh will punish evil and bless the faithful remnant, as he has demonstrated so often in history. Eventual victory is assured via the triumph of his kingdom through his Son, Jesus Christ, the Messianic King. God will have his way with his creation. Let's read that sentence again too. God will have his way with his creation. He is going to have the final say. He is going to have the final word. Okay, so now we're going into the major themes. There are, in this book, there are 6. And the first one is the one I wanted to kind of focus on, which is the complex relationship between Israel and Edom. Let's read about the history here. These nations, the complex relationship between Israel and Edom is the first major theme. And it says, these nations saw their complex, troubled relationship originating from the stories of twin brothers, the sons of Isaac and Rebekah, who are Jacob and Esau in Genesis. Right at birth, Jacob emerged grabbing hold of his older twin's heel. And God prophetically announced that these sons would be the founders of 2 separate nations, and the older would serve the younger. The family was divided, with Isaac having a preferential love for Esau and Rebekah having a loving preference for Jacob. And that's in Genesis 25. Esau despised his birthright by swapping it for a plate of stew from Jacob. And later, Jacob impersonated Esau and deceived their father into giving him the paternal blessing meant for Esau. Such blessings had legal force in the ancient Near East and included inheritances. At this treachery, Esau was furious and determined to murder his brother, Genesis 27, and Jacob fled the family home and went to live with his uncle, Laban, the brother of Rebekah, Genesis 28. After many years, Jacob finally reunited with Esau in the land of Edom on his way back to Canaan. Jacob arrived fearfully with gifts and humility, and Esau responded with an embrace and kiss. There was no longer any grudge between them. It's kind of significant. However, while the relationship between the 2 brothers may have been reconciled, later years saw enmity re-emerge between the 2 nations of Israel and Edom. Several other Old Testament texts refer to Edom's hostility toward the Israelites, also commonly known as the sons of Jacob or Israel. In particular, the Edomites refused to allow the Israelite tribes to pass through their territory en route to Canaan during their wilderness wanderings. Deuteronomy 2 records the Edomites' fear of the Israelites. Israel's hostility toward Edom in future successful military battles against the Edomites is recorded elsewhere in 2 Samuel and 2 Kings. Okay, so I've always wondered what all this was leading to with this birthright being stolen and how it played out in history and even what it was doing in our world today. I look at the Middle East and I wonder who is still suffering the effects of this shenanigans, you know? And so I looked up someone who you may know, Jonathan Cahn, and looked up to see if he had spoken on anything about Jacob and Esau, and he had, and the Edomites. And they, as they call them, I don't know how to pronounce this, the Idumea, I-D-U-M-E-A, Idumea, I don't know, but they, okay, so when I looked this up, I tried to write all of it down in my notes here. I hope I can read this. And it says, it's called the Idumean Mystery. So you could look it up on YouTube if you want to. Jonathan Cahn, C-A-H-N, and the Idumean Mystery. Here it is in a nutshell. Here these two twin brothers are at odds with each other. And I do think it's significant that they reconciled, and it is significant that it happened in the land of Edom. But one stole the birthright of the other. So Jacob stole Esau's birthright, and that had his whole inheritance linked to it. Now, Esau was foolish, of course, to sell it for being hungry for a bowl of stew. That could be. I don't know how many people in this world have made a worse decision or a more unwise decision than that, but that was pretty unwise. If you've made unwise decisions, you can look at this one and maybe think yours wasn't as bad. I don't know. But all this to say, what it led me to when I watched this little video teaching was that it led up to the birth of Christ. And we just celebrated Christmas. And do you remember that when Jesus was born, King Herod was privy to it, and he had babies up to the age of 2, boys, slaughtered throughout the kingdom because he was afraid that whomever was being born, the Messiah, if it was true, would take his place and take his mantle, so to speak, his kingdom. And he couldn't stand the thought of that, so he just got rid of everyone, and he thought that he had gotten rid of the Messiah. And it says that, let me just read what I wrote here. King Herod was to slaughter, his plan was to slaughter all the boys in the kingdom. Before this, though, Isaac was to bless Esau. Isaac would have dominion over Esau, but Esau became enraged and planned to kill Jacob. So Jacob fled, and his descendants were the Jews who were blessed. The Edomites were Esau's descendants, and they became the ones that were not blessed. They lived in a desert rather than a promised land. During the Roman Empire, the Idumeans, these are the Edomite people, raised up a king. during the Roman Empire. And that king from that descent was Herod. And Herod was the actual child descendant of Esau. And remember, Esau wanted the birthright. He wanted the blessing. And the Messiah, Jesus, was born in the lineage of Jacob. It's crucial. So they're saying here that even to the day of the birth of Jesus, there was still something going on of people living in and out of the blessing of God, in and out of this birthright, in and out of what had been decided way back with Rebecca and Isaac, with their two boys. And the Messiah, Jesus, was born in the lineage of Jacob. And Jonathan Cahn said, it's crucial you receive the blessings of God. And when you're born again, that makes you of the kingdom of Jacob, of the kingdom of the Messiah, of Jesus. And you are a part of his blessed lineage now. So I just wanted to bring that out because I even looked up where the land of the Edomites is today, and it would be in the country of Jordan. And you know, Jordan, I looked that up too, is occupied by many Palestinians. And you know, there's this Palestinian kind of agitation and war going on with Israel still. And I just wanted to let you know that I don't have complete, but I have better understanding today of what I've been feeling in my spirit about how this agitation goes back for centuries, and that the land that is being warred over in Israel, that there is something of the blessing of God and people living outside the blessing of God because of man's choice long ago. So I just wanted to bring that up, and then we will go into the next, or the second major theme, which is lex talionis. This is a phrase in Latin for the law of retribution. That's what it means, the law of retribution. It calls for punishment that parallels the severity of the crime. Edom would be treated the same way she had treated others, including, of course, Israel. This is brought into sharp focus in Obadiah 15, which explicitly declares, "As you've done to others, so will it be done to you. You will be paid back for all that your deeds deserve." We'll be reading that when we read in Obadiah. Just as Edom had treated Israel with contempt, so would God similarly punish Edom. Just as Edom had profaned the holy mountain of God in Jerusalem, so would she, along with the nations, keep on drinking the bitter cup of God's judgment. The Hebrew phrase is ahin tachet ahin, and that means an eye for an eye. So then the third theme is inflated pride. The Edomites did not believe that the rules applied to them, as do many in our world today. They saw themselves literally and figuratively as above their neighbors. They lived at a high elevation. In Obadiah 3 it says that, and Obadiah called them out on this and announced the consequences of such comparative thinking. God regards pride as one of the most heinous of sins, primarily because it displays an attitude of arrogant independence from God as both Creator and Lord. Those who are filled with arrogant pride, as the Edomites were, draw upon themselves the righteous anger of God, since they erroneously believe that they can live independently of God and have no need of him in their lives. So pride often displaces the need for God. And that's why we need to really watch that in our lives, which I need to do myself for sure. All right, so then we have 3 more major themes. We have the day of Yahweh, which we seem to see in each of these minor prophets. And then we have Edom and Adam, and then seeing Jesus in the book. And I think I'm going to save these 3 for tomorrow. So we will finish the introduction to Obadiah tomorrow, and we'll also start, or I don't know if we'll complete the whole chapter of Obadiah. Probably we can. It'll be January 1st, 2025. Wow, so incredible. We're turning the page, people. We're going into the new year and a new era, I believe. It's a whole new era that we're going into. And let's see what God has for us. And I thank you so much for coming on with me today. I hope that you have a wonderful New Year's Eve. Bless you and your family and those that you love. And Lord, we thank you so much for being with us through 2024. And we give you all of 2025 ahead of us. We ask that you would draw us close to you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, see you tomorrow at 7:30. Have a great day. Bye-bye.